Chapter 1. I jolted awake to find Stella bursting into my room, flinging an invitation onto my bed. "Look at you, pale as a ghost. My wedding is next month and you better be there. Don't forget to bring a big gift." I blinked in disbelief at the names printed on the invitation, my mind racing and completely missing Stella's words. Groom, Ray Owen, and bride, Stella White. My hands trembled as I opened the invitation. Ray, dressed in a crisp white shirt against a striking red background, appeared less distant and more inviting than I remembered. Stella stood beside him and they looked like a picture-perfect couple. I managed a bitter smile, but inside my heart twisted painfully, as if 1,000 ants were gnawing at it. Yet this pain was nothing compared to the anguish I had endured in my past 2 lives, where my suffering had been 1,000 times more intense. "Congratulations," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. I shoved the invitation under my pillow, turned on my side, and bit down hard on my lip, willing the tears to stay at bay. As I drifted off to sleep, I found myself dreaming of Ray, his lips brushing against my cheek in a tender kiss. He knelt before me, a diamond ring in hand, his eyes brimming with affection. "Jill, will you marry me?" "I will." But just as Ray reached to place the ring on my finger, the beautiful floral scene around us shattered. Waves crashed around me, lifting my body, and a truck barreled toward us. "Ray, watch out." In that split second, I summoned every ounce of strength to shove Ray away from danger. The next moment, I felt the impact as I was thrown aside, blood soaking the pavement, while Ray's heart-wrenching cries echoed in my ears. My pillow was drenched with tears upon waking. I pulled the invitation from beneath my pillow, my fingers tracing Ray's face in the photo over and over again. In my past life, I had come so close to becoming his bride. For 10 long years, I had harbored feelings for Ray, 3 years in high school, 4 years in college, and 3 years into my career. I worked tirelessly to get into the same university as him. After graduation, I believed our paths had finally diverged until I landed a job at his father's company. Ray took over the family business, becoming my boss. At a celebratory party, he recognized me instantly. I lowered my gaze, desperately trying to blend into the background. I hoped he wouldn't notice me, but his intense gaze was impossible to ignore. Finally, his deep voice cut through the noise. "Jill." I looked up, my cheeks flushing, heart racing at the sight of my longtime crush standing right in front of me. "Boss," I managed to say. He chuckled softly, a sound that sent butterflies swirling in my stomach. I focused on my shoes, feeling heat rise in my face as Ray's laughter washed over me. He handed me a glass of red wine. "Give it a try." I accepted the glass, my eyes locked on his graceful hand, a rush of exhilaration overwhelming me. Before I knew it, I had downed the glass, my mind starting to swirl. With my low tolerance for alcohol, I became tipsy almost instantly. Fueled by liquid courage, I tiptoed forward and kissed Ray. When I awoke the next morning, I found myself in a hotel room, utterly alone. Ray had vanished, leaving only a faint trace of his cologne lingering in the air. He was always so composed, never letting his emotions show in public. At work, we carried on as if nothing had happened. Once, Ray traveled abroad for a project and unexpectedly brought me along. No one could have predicted that our rival would resort to hiring local gangsters to kidnap Ray. In a moment of desperation, I created a diversion, allowing others to escape with Ray while I donned his coat to draw the gangsters' attention to myself. I was captured. The gangsters mistook me for Ray's girlfriend, demanding a ransom of $50 million. But the ransom never came. Instead, I was met with scornful taunts from my half-sister Stella. "Today is my wedding day with Ray. Don't come and ruin it." In the end, I met my tragic fate at the hands of the bad guys. Chapter 2. After dying twice, I was reborn once more. This time just a month before Stella and Ray's wedding. Home was empty. I made myself a bowl of instant noodles. As I scrolled through my social media, I stumbled upon a post from Stella, a 9-grid family photo collage. In the pictures, she beamed with sweet happiness, flanked by Ray's family on one side and our father and stepmother on the other. The round table was laden with exquisite dishes. I stared at my instant noodles, completely devoid of appetite. Since my rebirth, I had been unusually sleepy, often struggling to distinguish between dreams and reality. The next day, I went to work at Owen Corporation. As the elevator doors slid shut, Ray stepped inside. Our eyes met for the briefest moment before he averted his gaze. We felt like strangers, completely disconnected. I stood in the corner watching him walk away, a bittersweet feeling pooling in my chest. Colleagues swarmed around Stella, showering her with congratulations, while I retreated to a quieter space. Both Stella and I were employees at Owen Corporation. I had been there for 3 years, while she had just joined less than a year ago, drawn by Ray's presence. Stella approached, eager to flaunt her relationship. "Sis, I noticed you liked my post. I figured you wouldn't want to come to these events, so I didn't invite you." She paused, a sly smile on her lips. "Tell Dad and Mom I'll be home late. Ray's taking me ring shopping." I hesitated before nodding in agreement. Growing up, Stella had always been competitive, always wanting to outdo me, even with Ray. She knew about my secret crush on him and reveled in twisting the knife whenever she could. After work, I ran into Stella at the company entrance. I pretended not to see her, but she intercepted me. "Let us give you a ride, sis. It's on our way. We can always get the rings later, right, Ray?" Ray smiled and nodded, the warmth in his gaze reserved only for Stella. He rarely smiled, but with her, he appeared utterly devoted. I pressed my lips together. "No need." Turning on my heel, I hurried away, my heart racing. I was afraid that if I lingered any longer, I might lose control in front of Ray. The first time I met Ray was in my first year of high school. I had been cornered by some bullies demanding my lunch money. With only $5 a day for food, giving in meant I'd go hungry. I stood my ground and they threatened to hurt me. Then Ray appeared, casually holding his phone as he snapped pictures. "I've called the police and will submit these photos," he declared. The bullies, infuriated, charged at him, but Ray picked up a brick and struck one on the head. The commotion drew the attention of nearby vendors, and soon, the bullies were taken away by the police. That day, Ray and I were picked up by our respective parents, and I learned he lived just above me. After that incident, I often spotted him waiting at the school gate. Whenever I approached, he would pretend I wasn't there, walking ahead, maintaining a deliberate distance of 10 meters. He had unknowingly protected me for 3 years. With him around, the bullies never bothered me again. That year, Stella entered high school and quickly developed a crush on Ray. She was perpetually buzzing about him, her teenage excitement bubbling over. I heard his family is wealthy. His dad is a successful businessman. Many girls like him, including me. He's not just handsome but also brilliant, like a hero from a novel. But he's so aloof and seems to have no friends. He's always alone. I quietly stored away every detail about him. During the second half of our senior year, everyone was focused on their studies. One evening after self-study, lost in thoughts about a math problem, I didn't notice Ray stop in front of me, and I bumped into his chest. Chapter 3. "I'm so sorry," I blurted, flustered, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. To my surprise, he chuckled softly. I was momentarily stunned. He averted his gaze, returning to his usual aloof demeanor. "Be careful next time," he said, his voice cool. Seeing him about to leave, I gathered my courage and called out. Just as he turned to leave, I found the courage to call out. I need help with a few math problems. I heard you're really good at math. Could you teach me?" Ray was a top student in science while I struggled with the humanities. Ray seemed momentarily taken aback but nodded. That weekend marked my first visit to his home. It was beautifully decorated, but I felt overwhelmed and out of place. Ray appeared distant, buried in his work and ignoring my presence. Trying to shake off my discomfort, I sat down across from him, determined to study. "Do we have guests?" Ray's father entered with an attractive woman. I noticed Ray's expression darken. Stella caught me coming downstairs, her eyes flashing with jealousy. "Jill, are you dating Ray? I'll tell Dad and Mom." "No, don't say that," I exclaimed, my heart racing. Stella seemed to sense my turmoil. She snatched the book from my hands and tossed it aside. "If you don't want me to tell, you have to promise me something." From then on, Stella always made me bring her to ask Ray questions. She insisted on tagging along whenever I met Ray. I became a mere background character in my own story. A week before the entrance exams, loud arguments and crashing sounds echoed from above. Later, I learned from my stepmother that Ray was the son of a mistress. His father's legitimate wife had found out about him and caused a scandal. After that, I didn't see Ray again. Until the day after the exams, I spotted him in the stairwell looking thinner. He was carrying a suitcase. Panic gripped me. I feared it would be our last encounter. Gathering my resolve, I asked, "Which university are you applying to?" "Westwood University," he replied. On my way home, I heard a cat meowing. An orange cat rubbed against my leg, meowing pitifully, instantly melting my heart. I picked it up, and it snuggled against me, allowing me to take it home. As expected, my stepmother exploded with rage. "You live off us, and now you want to keep a pet? Get rid of it, or you won't be coming back." I had longed to leave this place, but my stepmother had always held me back, knowing I would be responsible for the housework if I left. Looking down, I muttered, "Fine, I'll move out tomorrow." My stepmother snapped, pinching my arm painfully. "So you think you're tough now, huh? You don't respect us anymore. Why can't you be like your sister, obedient and sensible? I've wasted my years raising you. If I had known, I wouldn't have let you go to university. I should have married you off for some bride price." I numbly endured her tirade. When I got into Westwood University, my stepmother vehemently opposed it, claiming we couldn't afford the tuition. She insisted I settle for a local college instead. Thanks to my aunt, who argued fiercely with her, I got my tuition paid. But in that house, I felt like I had lost my place. While packing, Stella returned. "Let me take care of the cat. If I do, Mom won't kick you out." "I don't want you to leave," she pleaded. "I'm getting married next month. I need someone to help look after our parents," I said. But before I could refuse, Stella whisked the orange cat away. I chased after her but found Ray in the living room. He held the cat, smiling at Stella. Let's call it Ball. Chapter 4. Ray and Stella took the cat to the vet. Throughout, Ray didn't spare me a glance. In my past 2 lives, he had named the stray cat Ball. We had brought Ball to the vet together for checkups and vaccinations. Ball loved to cling to Ray, often sleeping on him and waking me in the mornings with soft meows for food. Even in this life, he remembered Ball. But he had forgotten me. I could no longer hold back my tears. With Ball's presence, Ray visited our home more often. I instinctively avoided him, working late every night for a week. Ball would rub against my legs, but Stella would scoop it up, protective as a mother hen. Ball was well taken care of, its coat shiny and smooth, much plumper than when I first rescued it. "Ball is my cat. You need to keep your distance," Stella declared. She seemed to forget that I had found Ball. My head felt heavy, too tired to argue, and I dragged my exhausted body back to my room. I slept until noon the next day. When I awoke, I had a high fever and a dry throat. After calling in sick, I drank some porridge and took a cab to the nearest hospital. While I was paying at the front desk, I saw Ray and Stella. "Ray, do you think it's a boy or a girl? We should prepare some names for when the baby arrives," Stella said excitedly. I watched them head toward the maternity ward. Dazed, I picked up my dropped receipt, Stella's words echoing in my mind. It felt as if my heart were being torn apart, making it hard to breathe. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" a nurse asked kindly. I shook my head, pale, but the world faded to black. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed, hooked up to N4. After the nurse finished changing the last drip, she looked at me with concern. "You had a fever of 104. With the exhaustion, your body couldn't handle it." I sincerely thanked her, then drifted back to sleep. That sleep was deep and restorative. At 10 p.m., I returned home to a quiet house. Meow. Ball jumped onto the couch, eyeing me curiously. I picked it up and scratched its back. It purred in contentment. Today was Stella's birthday. She had posted on social media, "Happy birthday to me, forever Mom and Dad's little princess." Wearing a crown, she made a wish in front of her birthday cake. Next to her, a hand with a matching ring appeared. It was Ray's hand. I stared at the ring, it was stunning. I filled Ball's bowl with cat food, squatting beside it as it ate. "Ball, it's just us tonight." That night, I dreamt again of Ray proposing. He knelt in a field of flowers, presenting a ring. "Jill, will you marry me?" I joyfully extended my hand. "I will." The ring matched the one Stella wore. As their wedding day drew near, I felt like I was forgetting more and more. Panic welled up inside me. Every night I wrote in my journal. Flipping through old entries, I noticed how often Ray appeared. Yet I had forgotten many moments we shared. I began to suspect I was losing my mind. 3 days before the wedding, Stella asked me to be her bridesmaid. The house was festively decorated, eagerly awaiting the big day. On the morning of the wedding, my stepmother woke me before dawn. "Quick, make breakfast for your sister. The groom will be here soon. And don't forget to bring snacks for the road." I cooked noodles while Stella slept. My stepmother coaxed her awake, but Stella pushed the noodles aside. "I can't eat. I have to wear my wedding dress." She eyed me. "Don't wear any makeup today." She didn't want me to overshadow her. Even if she hadn't said it, I lacked the energy to dress up anyway. At the wedding, the lights sparkled. Ray looked tall and distinguished in his tailored suit, exuding elegance. He held Stella's hand as they walked down the aisle. I stood among the well-dressed crowd, witnessing their union. "Ray Owen, do you take Stella White to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in sickness and in health?" "I do." Ray placed the wedding ring on Stella's finger. I had often imagined what my wedding with Ray would be like. We had known each other for 10 years since high school. In my first life, I died saving him from gangsters. In my second life, he proposed to me, but I again died trying to save him from a car accident. Both times I died because of him. I was exhausted. Since nothing could change, I only wanted to live well in this life. As long as he was happy, I had no regrets. My heart ached like a knife wound, and the world spun around me before I lost consciousness. Someone fainted. Ray noticed the familiar figure collapse in the crowd and rushed toward me, letting go of Stella's hand. "Jill." Chapter 5. I heard someone repeatedly calling my name. I wanted to see who it was, but the persistent voice disturbed my peace. I struggled to open my eyes and found a stubbled man with dark circles beneath his eyes staring at me with relief. "Jill, you're finally awake." Doctor." Before I could ask who he was, he dashed out, calling for the doctor. The doctor examined me and informed the man, "The patient's condition is stable. Just keep her under observation for a few more days, and she should be able to go home." "Thank you, doctor." The man turned back to me, concern etched on his face. "I'll get you some porridge. You've been unconscious for 3 days, so you shouldn't eat anything heavy." His affectionate demeanor caught me off guard. I pulled my hand away and asked cautiously, "Who are you?" Ray's smile faltered, his voice trembling. "I'm Ray." "Jill, do you really not remember me?" I shook my head, sensing he was harmless and relaxing slightly. "Did you bring me to the hospital?" "Thank you. Can you give me your payment details?" "I'll reimburse you for the medical expenses." A scoff echoed from the door and Stella walked in. "Sis, your act of amnesia is quite convincing," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You ruined my wedding. What do you want now? Do you think pretending to be weak will make Ray leave me for you? Dream on." I gazed at my sister, who was spiraling into hysteria, feeling utterly confused as my head throbbed. "I don't know what you're talking about, Stella. This man helped me. Can you please escort him out?" Stella scrutinized me, noticing my disorientation. Her expression shifted, and she looked at Ray with mixed emotions. "Ray, this must be karma," she spat. I didn't understand their conversation. I was too tired and soon fell back into a deep sleep. The next day, I discharged myself from the hospital. Returning home, I was blocked at the door by my stepmother, who threw my luggage outside. "You ruined Stella's wedding. How could I raise such an ungrateful wretch? Get out." I let her berate me, feeling a heavy weight in my chest. From friends, I learned that I had fainted at Stella's wedding and that Ray had left to take me to the hospital. Ashamed to face Stella, I picked up my suitcase and left. While waiting for a cab near the neighborhood, I spotted an orange cat lying in the grass. Ball weakly nudged my hand with its head. It was much thinner and had injuries, barely clinging to life. I rushed it to the vet. The doctor informed me that Ball had been abused, its wounds inflicted by humans. Anger surged through me, and I called Stella, scolding her for the first time. This was the first time I had stood up to her. Once Ball had recovered, I left the country with it. The day I was discharged, Ray and Stella were at the courthouse finalizing their divorce. When Ray returned and found me missing, he desperately tried to reach me, only to discover my old number was no longer in service. He sought out Stella. Where's Jill? Chapter 6. Stella, now the subject of gossip among friends and neighbors, was hostile to Ray. I don't know. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Late love is worse than dogs. She doesn't want you anymore. Ray clenched his fists, his eyes bloodshot with rage and sleeplessness. He turned to leave but stopped, searching the house. Where's Ball? I threw it out. Threw it out? Where? Ray, barely containing his anger, was terrifying. Stella stammered. Just in the neighborhood. It's just a cat. We're divorced, why keep it? Seeing Ray care more for a cat than her, she was bitter. Ray never showed her any affection, always cold. It was maddening. She wanted to make Jill jealous, but Jill had forgotten Ray. She felt foolish for always competing with Jill. Jill was smarter, prettier, and more likable. Stella hated Jill. Jill, as her sister, was a shadow over her life. Where's Jill's room? Stella led him to a cramped room in the corner. Ray saw the small bed and a wooden desk, no windows, and his face darkened. He hadn't realized Jill lived in such conditions. He searched the room and found a hidden journal in the bottom drawer. He opened it. Ray is so aloof, but he's kind. I'm grateful he saved me. What should I do? Think I like Ray. If he knows, will he hate me and stop waiting for me after school? I'm scared the bullies will come back. I got into Westwood University. I want to tell Ray, but I don't know his contact details. I wonder how he's doing. Owen Corp is Ray's family business. I'm so happy to be closer to him. Today is the first day of my third rebirth. Ray and Stella are getting married. I don't want to die again. I want to live. Ray, you live well too. Be happy. I seem to forget a lot. Reading my journal feels strange. Did we really have those moments? Or did I imagine them? Tears fell on the journal. Ray covered his face, sobbing. He asked HR about my status, learning I'd resigned a month ago. Ray spent a week drinking in bars. He was falling apart, losing weight. His mother, furious, locked him in the house, forbidding him to leave until he came to his senses. If you keep this up, the company will be taken over. If Jill saw you like this, she'd call you a loser. Chapter 7. Ray's perspective. I was reborn. I remembered the past 2 lives. Jill saved me twice. The first time, she distracted the gangsters, letting me escape. I wanted to save her, but I was unconscious for a week in the hospital. When I woke, I learned she was dead. I regretted it deeply. I shouldn't have left her. I should have died instead. I found out the gangsters had called me, but Stella answered. I confronted Stella and learned she told Jill I was getting married. I was furious. My marriage to Stella was arranged by our parents, nothing to do with me. I wanted to marry Jill. At the celebration party, Jill kissed me. I was both surprised and overjoyed, because I liked her too. I had liked her since high school. I purposely waited for her after school, enjoying the feeling of having her company on the way home, even if she kept her distance. Initially, she followed me like a timid kitten, always 10 steps behind. I found it amusing and sometimes slowed down to see if she would catch up, but she was even more timid than I thought. When I slowed down, she slowed down too. When I sped up, she would jog to keep pace. Though we never spoke, those days made me very happy. One day, I couldn't resist and waited for her on purpose. But she was lost in thought, muttering about math problems. She was obsessed with studying. I found her struggle with math endearing. Listening to her, I solved the problem in my head. Just as I was about to call her, she bumped into my chest. I was stunned. The girl in my arms was soft, her faint fragrance filling my senses, making my heart race. When she bravely asked if I could help her with math, my heart soared. Afterward, Stella always tagged along, interrupting every chance I had to talk to Jill. When my mother's affair became public, I feared Jill would look down on me. I avoided her, ashamed of being the child of a mistress. The second time, Jill died saving me from a car accident. I had just proposed to her, and we had dreamed of our future together. We even picked names for our future children. A boy would be named Jasper, and a girl would be called Zoe. But our future ended in that car accident. In this life, I discovered the plot against me earlier and dealt with my half-brother, securing my position in the company. No one would threaten my life again. But I had a dream where Jill died once more, saving me. I feared the dream would come true. Jill wouldn't have a good outcome with me. I didn't want her to suffer again. So I followed the original path and married Stella. At Stella's house, I saw Ball. I named it Ball intentionally in front of Jill. When choosing wedding rings, I picked the same one I had used to propose to Jill in our past life. I wanted her to see the ring and be disappointed in me. I only wanted her to live well this time. But I regretted it. Seeing Jill alone at the wedding watching me marry Stella, my heart ached unbearably. I avoided her gaze, fearing I would regret and hurt her again. When she fainted, I reacted instinctively, remembering the fear of losing her in the past lives. My hands trembled as I held her. She couldn't die. I had lost her twice already, but she woke up not remembering me. Yet she was alive, and that was enough. I shouldn't ask for more. Jill, this time let me protect you. Chapter 8. For 3 years, I never stopped searching for Jill. After extensive inquiries, I finally found her. She was attending a medical conference in Heischer on the 20th of this month. The day before the conference, I spent a long time grooming myself. I shaved, styled my hair, and tried on multiple suits. I wanted to appear in front of Jill looking my best. Entering the conference, my palms were sweaty with nerves. I scanned the crowd looking for her. But after a long search, I couldn't find her. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Thank you, Professor Wong, for your support. It's an honor to collaborate with an expert like you. I turned swiftly and saw her, confidently conversing. Jill wore a champagne-colored dress, her hair up, exuding elegance. She looked even more stunning than before. I smiled widely, but just as I was about to approach her, a man appeared beside her, affectionately holding her. The man placed his hand on Jill's belly, with a mixture of worry and adoration. Jill, you've been standing for almost an hour. Take a break. Jill playfully glared at the man. I'm only 3 months pregnant, not too big to walk. Why are you so worried? The man, handsome and distinguished, looked perfect with her. Unknowingly, I followed them. I watched as the man cajoled Jill with a plate of fruit. Just one more piece. The doctor said you need more vitamins. Jill reluctantly pushed the fruit away, but her tone was playful. I really can't eat anymore. You're going to make me as fat as a pig. The man didn't mind eating the fruit Jill had nibbled on. How about this? Tonight I'll make you some late-night snacks. You said you were craving snail noodles. Just a bite, I won't tell your parents. The man showed no trace of his elite demeanor in front of Jill. I was glad Jill had a happy family. The obsession in my heart eased. Chapter 9. Jill's perspective. I felt like someone was watching me, but looking around I saw no one. It must have been my imagination. After the medical conference, my husband asked me to wait while he fetched the car. Standing by the roadside, I was suddenly knocked over by 2 kids playing. I lost my balance, falling down the steps. Instinctively, I protected my belly. The baby couldn't be harmed. But instead of hitting the ground, I fell into a familiar yet unfamiliar embrace. He cushioned my fall, rolling down the steps with me. I heard him grunt in pain just as my husband arrived to help me up. Jill, are you hurt? Let's go to the hospital. I quickly stopped him, pointing to the man on the ground. Check on him first. The next morning, my husband and I visited the man who saved me. He had a bandage on his head, having gotten stitches from the fall. I felt guilty and placed the fruit and gifts we brought on the side. Thank you for saving me and my baby. I sincerely apologized, noticing his complex gaze. He forced a smile. No need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same. I knew he was trying to ease my burden. Not everyone would risk their life for a stranger. Suddenly, he asked, "Have you picked a name for your baby?" His question puzzled me, but he was my savior, so I answered. If it's a boy, we'll name him Jasper. If it's a girl, Zoe. I saw tears in his eyes. For some reason, my heart ached too, as if I had lost something vital. I'm sorry I feel unwell. I need to be alone. He realized his mistake and asked us to leave. As we left, he gazed out the window, whispering, Jasper, Zoe, such beautiful names. When we returned the next day, the nurse said he had checked out. Back home, I found Ball was not well. Ball had been severely abused, leaving him with chronic issues. Living this long was a blessing. My husband and I stayed with Ball until the end. 7 months later, I gave birth to a baby girl. Our daughter was healthy and lovely. We had agreed she would take my surname if she was a girl and my husband's if a boy. We named her Jill Zoe, hoping she would have a happy and smooth life. Chapter 10. Zoe's Perspective. My name is Jill Zoe and I'm 5 years old. Our teacher took us to a science exhibition. The exhibition was huge and filled with things I had never seen. The teacher said these were all high-tech products, the fruits of human wisdom. I wanted to be a scientist too. Children, stay close to the teacher and don't wander off. I was so engrossed that I didn't hear the teacher. Suddenly, I realized I couldn't see my teacher or classmates. Tears welled up, but I remembered what Mom said. Don't cry if you get lost. Find a police officer. I held back my tears. Little one, where's your mom? I looked up at the tall man before me, blinking. Mom said not to talk to strangers, but this man didn't look like a bad person. Do you have a phone? The man nodded, unlocking his phone and handing it to me. I dialed my teacher's number, speaking in my small voice. Teacher, I'm lost. The teacher told me to stay put and they'd come find me. I returned the phone, and the man explained my location to the teacher. The man picked me up, soothing me. Your teacher is on the way. Don't wander off again. Your mom will worry. I asked curiously, do you know my mom? The man looked at me, his emotions complicated. Yes, I know her. I rolled my eyes, recalling a scene from TV. Are you in love with my mom? I have a dad who loves her very much. You don't stand a chance. The man chuckled, ruffling my hair. You're quite the character. Soon the teacher arrived, shocked to see the man. You're Mr. Owen. The man nodded, smiling at me. Take better care of the kids. Don't let them get lost again. The teacher promised, taking me away. I asked curiously, Teacher, who was that man? The teacher looked up to him. He's the CEO of Owen Corp, a leading philanthropist in our country. But it's a pity he never married or had kids, living alone. On my 18th birthday, I received a gift. The lawyer handed 3 wills to my parents and me. These are from Mr. Owen. One for Jill Zoe, one for Jill White, and one for Mr. Fu. He donated half his estate to charity, leaving the rest to Jill Zoe and Jill White. Mr. Owen wrote to me, Dear Jill Zoe, listen to your mom and live a happy life. My parents looked at their letters, their expressions strange. They shared the letters with me. I learned Ray Owen had loved my mom. He never married or had children, dying of cancer at 51. In his letter to my dad, he wrote, I envy you for being with Jill. 18 years ago, I regretted not leaving sooner. I almost caused her to lose the baby. Since then, I didn't dare to see her, fearing I'd bring her bad luck. I was always unlucky. May you have a long and happy life together. Don't mistreat her, or I'll haunt you even in death. The end.